And we're live. Okay. Oh, I have another. Let me stop this. Okay. Okay. Um, Welcome to another episode of Joker Podcast. And today we have oh, let me focus on this. Okay. Yes. Today we have with us Rob Daviau. Correct me if I pronounce it
No,
wrong.
you did it perfectly.
Okay. One of the most revolutionary designers in modern board gaming. Rob is the creator of, hear me, legacy games, a concept that has fundamentally changed how we think about tabletop experiences. He is the co-designer of Pandemic Legacy alongside Matt Leacock, that will be our guest the next week.
No.
And the designer behind classics like Betrayal at the House on the Hill, magical game, and Risk 2210, and the co-founder of Restoration Games, which brings our beloved out-of-print games back to life. With over 25 years in the industry and more than 120 published games, Rob has shaped gaming at Hasbro as an independent designer and now as an entrepreneur. Rob, welcome to Il Gioco in Podcast.
Thank you. Wow. No wonder I'm tired. I've done a lot.
Okay, and we have less than an hour to talk about all these things. Okay, Rob. So let's begin immediately. Rob, you literally invented the concept of legacy games with Risk Legacy in 2011. Can you take us back to that moment of inspiration? What made you think what if a board game could change permanently?
Yeah, it involved a brainstorm I was doing at Hasbro for the game Clue, actually. And I earlier in the day had made a joke. I said, I don't know why these people keep coming over for dinner because someone always gets murdered. Like it was this recurring every Sunday night thing. And it was just kind of a throwaway line. I got a laugh. But then later that day, we were doing a brainstorm activity where you talk about assumptions for games. And then sometimes an assumption isn't true and it gives you a new idea. Like, what if the game board was upside down on the table? Or what if the game board went under the table? Or what if only some people could reach the game board, right? Like, you just sort of start playing with things. And I said, what if the actions that take place in one game affect the next game? And it was just kind of like in the space. And my boss at the time, who was writing notes, stopped and kind of did this pointing thing with a pen, like, oh, yeah, that. And I don't remember the rest of the day because I was sort of captivated by that. I had been a big role playing gamer my whole life, and I read a lot of comic books. And for a while, I thought I was going to be a television writer. So episodic storytelling has always been something I've been interested in. And so I just sort of said, how can I do something that's kind of episodic board game? And I tried to make it work with Clue, and Hasbro didn't want it. And then about 6 months later, I was working on a Risk project, and I said, I think I can take this idea and make it work with Risk. It's a series of wars and how they affect the world. And it took about a year. But yeah, I thought people were going to, I thought a larger number of people were going to hate it. There are still plenty of people who will regularly tell me how much they hate it. And, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made these games for those people. But the number of people who actually thought it was pretty cool was much higher than I thought.
Pandemic Legacy Season 1 became the first game on Board Game Geek and won Board Game of the Year. How did the collaboration with Matt Leacock come about, and how do you split creative duties on such an intimate design partnership?
Yeah. I left Hasbro about a year after Risk Legacy came out, which was great timing. I just left because the company moved and I had kids at home at the time and I couldn't go with them. So I had this nice calling card and I was just doing my own thing. And I was at Gen Con about in 2013. And I stopped by just looking to see if anyone needed help or pitching games and, trying to work for myself. And someone at Z-Man said that Matt Leacock was looking for me. He wasn't at the show, but he didn't know how to get in touch with me. And I thought in my head, oh, that'd be cool, a Pandemic Legacy. And then went home and immediately forgot about it. But about a month later, I walked by Pandemic on the shelf. I said, "Oh, I should reach out just to see if I can get some work." And I found it. I found him on Twitter, and then we emailed, and we just started collaborating. And it was not only my most successful game I've ever done, but it was remarkably easy to make with Matt. It took 13 months, which is pretty short, and worked really well. As for how we divide our duties, we do all the game design and larger storytelling stuff in collaboration back and forth on calls like this. But I tend to do most of the actual writing, and he does most of the actual like prototyping kit, like
Okay.
what the icons are and how things like we do kind of when we have to execute it. I tend to do words and he tends to do pictures, but even then he'll do words and I'll do pictures. But it really is a back and forth collaboration.
Hmm. You spent 14 years at Hasbro, starting with Trivial Pursuit and working up to Risk Legacy. How did working for a mass market giant shape your design philosophy? What did you
Um,
learn? What did you learn about reaching
well,
different
first of
audience?
all, it was
Okay.
great. I got paid to learn how to be a game designer, right? Whether I did all bad games or all good games, I got to I got a steady paycheck, which was great. I didn't have to wait for that big one to hit or royalties or start a project and get paid 3 years later. So that was fantastic. And I got to work on a ton of games that I grew up with, which was really cool. And so I got to do Betrayal at House on the Hill, and I worked on Heroescape, and I worked on some DVD games, and I worked on Trivial Pursuit, and just a number of things that were really cool, and a ton of Risk games. I worked on Star Wars games and worked with people. I think what I learned was how to, interestingly enough, is how to think from the very beginning about how the game was going to be manufactured, right? Like, is it going to make money? What size box? Who the audience is? Because you had to do that at Hasbro, and it's something I still do now. I very rarely just make a game and say like, we'll just see where it goes. I like to know like who are we talking to and what do they want out of a game and how much are they willing to spend on it. Like it gave me a business hat, which has helped me being a publisher. Um, and that really helped. But towards the end, Hasbro at the time was going in a direction to do lighter, simpler games. Um, I knew it was probably time to move on, but it's scary to stop and just start your own business with no hope of having any particular money. So the fact that the company moved and sort of made that choice for me, it just happened to work out at the right time.
It was just a kick.
Yeah, just
Mhm.
happened.
Mhm. Um, uh, Betrayal is famous for its unpredictable asymmetric scenarios. How do you design a game where you don't know what the game will become?
So that game came in from an inventor. I always like to make sure I give him plenty of credit. I would have never, ever have thought of this idea, but it came to me at Hasbro and it was very different. It was designed for a much more gamer audience. And I fell in love with it when I played it. I just wanted to keep playing it. And it was emergent storytelling. It was unpredictable. It felt like I was playing a role playing game, which I like. It started to break rules that I didn't think you could break in a game. Like you don't know the victory conditions when you start playing, and probably started my brain thinking like, what can a game do? What are the things that it can do that you haven't thought of? And I spent about a year and a half kind of turning it into the game that it is now. Like changed the dice, changed a bunch of stuff, kind of simplified it for a wider appeal. I know the original designer we talked, he missed some of the crunchier stuff that was in the original game, but uh and I was at the point where I was like, I don't know how I make this all work. There are 50 haunts.
Hmm.
They need to work for variable player counts. How do you get this where people understand what they're supposed to do and it's fair? And then at that point, the game got moved to Wizards of the Coast to finish it for
Yes.
development. And I remember being incredibly sad that I couldn't finish it, but also a little relieved that I didn't have to solve that problem of how do you play test this enough to feel like it's done? It'll never be perfect. There's too many permutations.
Yeah.
Um, and then I've worked on almost every Betrayal version that's come out, even in a tiny form since then. So it's just been one of my favorite games to work on. I'm not even a horror fan, but I love that it's a short story generator. And I tell people we're gonna make up a short story kind of randomly and kind of collaboratively. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it's amazing. Most of the time it's in the middle, but you just have to kind of go with it.
For those who doesn't know, don't know Betrayal at the House on the Hill, I want just to point out that there's a fantastic episode of Tabletop, the show with Will Wheaton. Tabletop, I can't
I
remember
remember it
well
was
the
a while
name.
ago now, but yeah, that's what made the game take off.
Yeah, that's a terrific episode for a terrific game, and it's very funny to see and just to understand that an horror game can be funny too. You know, you can have laughs at.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah. And that's what made the game, yeah, really take off. And I'm very proud that I got to work on that game with a number of people. I got it from an inventor, and other people finished it, but that I had my hand in. It's just something I think is really different and cool. And one of my favorite games I ever worked on was Betrayal Legacy back in
yeah.
2016, 20. Oh boy, that's getting on 10 years ago, huh? Um, because it took two impossibly complicated systems, the Betrayal system and the Legacy system, and it was such a daunting challenge to make it hold together. And I'm sure some people who've played it said that maybe would say I didn't do it perfectly. You could always do a game better once you think about it, but I'm really proud of the story it told and how we got those two systems to work together.
Let's switch to Seafall, your
Yeah,
first ambitious experiment. Seafall was your first original legacy game after leaving Hasbro. Correct me if
that's
I'm wrong.
correct. I worked on it. Pandemic Legacy came up before, but I started on Seafall before, and it
Okay.
was the first and to date only original one from scratch, not based on something.
It's a massive 4X exploration game with a branching campaign. It was
Yeah.
ambitious, but the game received mixed reviews. What did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, that one is one that, I might reboot someday. And now that I have some more seasoning and I know what I'm doing better, I think I made some bad assumptions. I only had done Risk at the time. So I was thinking, let's make it off a Risk that players will self-balance the campaign. If someone's winning, other people will go against them. And I don't think people like self-balancing across a legacy campaign, because you feel like, you need to spend 2 or 3 games taking down the leader, which isn't fun. And the leader feels like they're getting picked on for 2 or 3 games, and that's not fun. I had too many ideas in it. Um, but where I think it ultimately fell, because I've met a lot of people who have really enjoyed it,
Hmm.
but I think ultimately two things happened. It was going to and was published by Plaid Hat Games, and I know Colby were friends. And then in the middle of this, Plaid Hat got bought by Z-Man, and the person in charge of the studio, Z-Man, wasn't really a big proponent of this game, Seafall. And so when I turned it over, I said, like, this needs some editing. I think I've got too much. And the decision was made above Colby's head, and he did everything. He's like, nope, just publish it as it is. I said it needed editing, and they skipped the development and editing process. And it shows. It's rough and it's ragged and needed cutting. And I think a number of people bought it who had played Pandemic Legacy and expected that and didn't get that, and they were upset about it. So I think it's unedited, it's rough, it had too many ideas, bad assumptions. There is a lot, uh there is a great game in there. You just have to find it, and I should have made it easier to find. So at some point, if I slow down, I might dust it off and kind of do a
Revamp
reboot.
it.
Yeah, do
Revamp.
a restoration of it, see if restoration games
Restoration. Okay.
wants it. There's been some talk about it, but it's still a little ambitious to figure out where it is.
So let's talk
Where
about Restoration Games. In
Yeah,
2016, you co-founded Restoration Games with the mission to resurrect older games and give them new life. What drives this preservationist approach? Why not just create entirely new games?
because every other publisher just creates new games, and there's thousands of them coming out, and
Over and over, new games, new games,
they're
new
like
games,
new games, and new
thousands
games
of
are
them.
great. But it wasn't my idea. My co-founder Justin Jacobson was my lawyer who looked at my contracts, and he wanted to get out of law, and he contacted me on a call. We had a call like this, and he said, I want to start a game publishing company. and I want you to be part of it. And I said, no, why are you doing this? There's too many. And then he said, we didn't have the name yet, but he said, I want to do a company that only takes games that are out of print and doesn't just reprint them, but kind of makes them better. And these can be games from the 70s. And I said, that's that's great. That is something that no one else is doing. And it allows me to make new games for other people. And it allows me to work on old games, here. So there was a clear division of where I was working. And I thought it was just fresh and different. And I had spent a lot of time, which is why he asked me, at Hasbro, saying like, okay, how do you make Risk better? How do you make Monopoly better? Like, I'm used to looking at a game and saying, I see what it's trying to do, but it's a little out of date. Let's see if we can make it more modern. Now, since that time, we've kind of gotten carried away, and a number of things are basically brand new games, vaguely based on an old game. So, like Return to Dark Tower, which we did 6 years ago or something.
My next
It's
question.
yeah, it's got a nod to the original, but it was a whole brand new game, right? And we've done that quite a bit, where we say it's going to be based on this game, and then keep like two tiny bits and make a new game. So we're not so good at restoring. We're pretty good at making it up again.
Return to Dark Tower was a massive Kickstarter success, using modern technology to recreate the electronic tower experience. How do you balance nostalgia with contemporary expectations? Not only in Return to Dark Tower, but in all the
Yeah, it's what we
restoration
do.
games.
Our line is, we want the game to be as good as you remember it being. Because a lot of times people will talk about a game like Dark Tower or Thunder Road or some of the other games, Fireball Island, and we always ask them, what do you remember? What do you like? And everyone will tell these stories when they were a kid or they were younger, and these cool moments. And you often see the same things mentioned again and again. And often those things are not what the original game does, but you were younger and for some reason you thought it did that thing. Like, our Fireball Island is bigger in many ways than the original, but everyone said, oh, the original was so big because you were like 8 years old and you remember it being that big. So we basically try to figure out what people remember and build a game around that. So Return to Dark Tower, for example, there's a tower in the middle of a circular board, and things spun around and you had to go to different kingdoms, and there were buildings, and that's about all people remembered. So they're like, okay, we can work with that. And it takes a while. And one of the things that my job is sort of the creative director is to be like, yeah, this is cool, but it needs more of the original game, right? We have, like, we're working on one now, and I say like, hey, this is good, but remember the original game did this, this, and this. So before we get too much further, how do we get that back into the game, even in a little way? So it's nice. It's like a guidepost. You kind of keeps you a little focused on where you're going.
The Unmatched series has become a phenomenon for restoration games. What makes that asymmetric fighting game system so special, in your opinion? And how do you keep expanding it while maintaining balance?
Um, well, I think many people would say we've not maintained perfect balance. That's why it's called Unmatched. Yeah, this is a redo of a game that I had worked on with Craig Van Ness back at Hasbro in 2002, called Star Wars Epic Duels, which was anyone in Star Wars fights anyone. So once again, being a restoration, it was easy to kind of start from that and then just expand it. I did not expect this to be such a worldwide ongoing hit. We've sold over 1 million units across all the different games across the world, which is great. It's just fun. Like, you make a deck, and we've got a pretty rigorous testing system now. We have an in-house designer, Noah, who really manages Unmatched, and we've got a formula for you testing within the box and testing between boxes and looking at various metrics. Oh, this character is good against these people, but not these people. We have like 80 characters in the universe now. So some characters will probably always be very good or bad against any other character, and that's part of the fun of finding it. What we try to avoid is all the characters getting slightly better every time, like a power creep. Right? We try to make sure we're pulling back, and we try not to get more complicated than we need to be, which is largely me shouting, keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple as much as possible.
Okay.
And yeah, we keep finding new, licenses and new things to do and new tricks on it, and probably got some life left in that. Like we like making it, and they continue to sell pretty steadily, so we're going to keep doing it.
Could you tell me in secret, in confidence,
Yeah, sure.
what's the next EP of Unmatched?
Oh, sure. Yeah, just between you and me, the next one.
Yes, because we haven't so many
Yeah,
listeners. So
yeah. I'm not going to tell you. I have a marketing person who would flat out murder me. So
no,
no,
nothing.
you know,
Okay.
we got some stuff coming out that's uh mostly unlicensed right now. We have Unmatched Adventures, which is a cooperative thing where everyone fights game. Where we will probably be doing more Unmatched Adventures at some point. Maybe not every year, maybe not every other, but every 2 or 3 would be my guess. And we're going to do a mixture of licensed sets and unlicensed sets, and we're going to try to find areas that we haven't been in before. Like we've done superheroes, so with Marvel, but I'm not saying we wouldn't do DC, but we might look other places first to try to get different people interested in the
Okay.
game, because what we discovered is if someone buys their first set of Unmatched and they like it, they then go out and buy 10 more Unmatched, right, which is great for making money and paying my employees.
Fair enough. Okay, you've guest lectured at Meet Carnegie Mellon,
Mm-hmm.
NYU, and
NYU.
being a visiting professor at Hampshire College. How do you approach teaching game design?
I have no experience, no training in officially teaching. um, what I do when I was a visiting professor and I actually had semesters where I was teaching a course, I tried to figure out, and I have a system that worked for me. You have to remember, these are 18 to 21-year-old, I want to call them kids because I'm older, but we'll call them 18 to 21-year-old kids who have never designed a game before, have no experience. And so what I need to do is, my approach is to get them from playing games for fun to thinking critically about games. And what I end up doing is having them pick a, I have a selection of games, I have them pick it, I have them play, and then they write a critique of it. And then I take their critique and I say, okay, you didn't like this part, change it. And then they do it with a different game. And then I ask them to make a game out of the 2 games they've critiqued. So I kind of like don't start them with a blank page. I start them modifying games and doing expansions and say, hey, you really like that game, make it 2-player. Hey, like almost like you would do if you would give someone like with an established game and they need to do something new. And I found that's a great way to get people's head around design problems. And only halfway through the semester do I say, okay, now for the rest of the time, you're going to make your own game. You're going to start with a entirely blank page and see how hard it is to go from nothing to something. And I tell them, I don't expect you to have a great game at the end of 7 or 8 more weeks, because you don't know what you're doing. That's not a lot of time. But I ask every week or twice a week, if depending on the class, you come in and you've done something new on your game and you explain why. And then I just go around and watch, like, what did you try new from last time? Why are we trying it? What problem do you want to solve? Some people make half decent games by the end. A lot of them don't, because it's hard. But I think they think about games differently.
What's the most important thing students need to understand about game design, in your opinion?
Um, Honestly, that is harder than you think. A lot of people sign up and they're like, I'm going to make games, and they think it's going to be like being 8 years old, where you draw a path and you get a die and you say lose a turn and go back to start, and all these bad games. And I think a lot of people walk in with confidence. It's like, it's making a game, right? It's like, in their head, they're thinking my analogy is, it's like anyone can cook dinner, but not everyone can be a chef. And so they have to go from, like, I can make a game. Making a good game is hard. Making a bad game is easy. And I think that's a surprise to people.
Um, a personal question. Your wife, Lindsay,
Mm-hmm.
is also in the gaming industry as art director at Restoration Games. How does it work having a creative partnership both professionally and personally?
Well, if you knew Lindsay, it works out great. Um, we met, actually, she was in graphics and I was in design at Hasbro. So our relationship started as a working relationship and then became a personal relationship. We've been together 20 years now. So it just feels comfortable. Luckily, we're both not game designers or both graphic designers, because we know when we're in the other person's area of expertise. Like she will play test a game, and she's very good at it and very good at games, and will give thoughts and stuff, but she knows it's up to me to sort of take that and finish it. And if I'm looking at graphics, I will have comments, but then at the end of the day, she's doing what she wants with them. And I think it's great. She's right over there, about 20 feet. And we sometimes work right next to each other, sometimes work apart. The only thing that's hard is at the end of the day, you can't ask your spouse, how was work today? Because you were kind of there the whole time. You know the same people. You can't say, who's that person at the office you were talking about? Whatever happened to them? Like, we know everyone. But we really enjoy working together.
Let's step back to legacy game. Legacy games ask players to permanently modify components. Ooh, something that feels almost taboo to many gamers. What's the psychology, your opinion, behind making people comfortable with destroying their games?
So it's interesting. A lot of the thing about destroying it came from Risk Legacy, the first one, because it was Risk. And Risk is very aggressive. I guess, is it Risico? It's a little different in Italy from where it's like a slightly
Yes,
different rule
yeah,
set. But
Risico. Yeah.
yeah, I think your version is better from what I remember than our version. But Risk is very confrontational. It's getting people, it's attacking people, it's taking their stuff. So I wanted a game that felt very like, oh, you want this card? Too bad, right? And I knew a lot of people weren't going to want to do that. That's not the point of a legacy game, is ripping something up or destroying something. The point of a legacy game is you're telling your own story, and sometimes you're adding, and sometimes you're taking away, and sometimes you're changing, and sometimes you're making decisions that are permanent. So the fact of like destroying something is a tiny part, but it was very big in the first game, because I wanted it to be sort of like, here's a radical idea. What do you think? But I have moved away because I discovered that that's the thing that people ask about ripping up a card, is like, what is always the question I get for 15 years now. I have moved away in legacy games from saying rip it up. I just say archive it, remove
The
it.
idea evolved.
Yeah, well, it's like I don't focus on it as much. I would have said before, like, destroy this card, and now I just say, do what you want, trash it. You could literally trash it. You can put it at the bottom of the box. I don't care. You don't need this card anymore. Whether you rip it up, burn it, or just put it in a sleeve and then look at it later is up to you, because I don't want people getting hung up on ripping a component. People don't have as much trouble putting a sticker on things, adding. Like, it's the same thing. You've made this card not what it was, but they feel like with a sticker they can still use it, or writing on a card.
Like Gloomhaven, where you put
Yeah,
sticker on the.
yeah, like Gloomhaven, and a number of people have done it. But like the exit games, those
Mm.
puzzle games,
Yes, yeah, exit games.
you are
Yes.
destroying those, but people
You
are like,
rip
yeah,
pages, you
you rip pages and you
fold,
open the
you.
box and you feel stuff, but
Yeah.
everyone's okay because they know you're supposed to destroy it. But something about the legacy thing, and I've actually, since the pandemic, I've noticed people are newly upset about changing things. Like in 2011 and 12, there was a little bit of upset. Most people liked it, but then when the pandemic legacy came out and Betrayal, people were suddenly like okay with it. And then the past couple of years, they're not okay with it again. So I don't know how many more I will do. I have 3 or 4 I'm working on for different publishers now, but I might wrap it up after that, because I think they've run their course, and I'm not saying never, but I can see people getting very hesitant again about changing their game components in a way that they were at the very beginning, but not in the middle. And I don't want to make games that make people mad, right? So
But legacy games have inspired many imitators and variations. Where do you see the concept evolving from now on? Are there unexplored territories in permanent change mechanics, in your opinion?
yeah, there's 2 parts to it. Uh, Permanently changing game elements is one thing, but also adding new components
Mm.
as you play, new rules, new packets, and opening things used to tell a story is a different way. And I think a lot of people have focused on opening boxes and adding new things in their games. Like, it's okay to,
Like My City or Rainer Knizia, where you find in little boxes
yeah,
more pieces of the game.
more
Yeah.
pieces. So it's a game with about 5 or 6 hidden expansions that you don't
Mm.
know what they are. And then you play and you get a little micro expansion. People don't mind that because that's where more people are going. And then the idea of actually permanently changing things so at the end you can't reset it is the part that still makes people very uncomfortable, or some people, and pausing. So I see legacy games going to more of a, if we become a campaign game where you don't know all the information at the beginning and you get these surprises, and your game plays out slightly different from other people, and that's okay. It's just moved away from the components and more to the storytelling element. um, and that's what it is, because I was terrified with Risk Legacy. I'm like, am I going to ask people to write on things and put stickers and rip up a card and draw on the board and sign things? I'm like, that's kind of a lot. And then I knew I was probably going to be leaving Hasbro soon, and I didn't know if I'd be able to find a job. I'm like, let's go out with something kind of crazy. Let's wrap up this career with just this absolutely weird idea and just see where it lands. And I thought it was going to be different. I thought it was going to be cool, but I thought it might be my people showing me the door and saying, "Okay, thank you, no more games from you." So I'm glad it wasn't.
But Risk Legacy and Pandemic Legacy were both usually successful, but with very different approach with legacy experiences. How did you adapt the legacy concept to serve each game's particular strengths?
Well, Risk is competitive, right? So
Mm.
you're playing against other people and you're trying to track who won. And it did some things that I haven't done in other legacy games since then. Like, you decided through your actions when you were opening new content envelopes or boxes, like the game didn't tell you, whereas Pandemic Legacy introduced a deck of cards and we as designers told you when to do the next thing. So that was Matt's idea. He's like, he wanted to kind of define and control the experience a little bit more. That's a cooperative game. I've actually, when we first started on Pandemic Legacy, I thought, man, I don't know if this works as a cooperative game. It turns out it works much better as a cooperative game, because if people are winning or losing, they're not getting 3 games in and saying, okay, you won the first 3 games. There's only 8 left. We're not, thanks, we're done. Like, you already won. With a cooperative, everyone's winning and losing together, and it's easier to keep playing. So the fact that it's cooperative was different. We were much more in control of the storytelling elements with a legacy deck. Um, and I still think from Pandemic Legacy 1 to 2 to 0, we got better and better at implementing what we wanted to do. 1 remained the most popular. I think 2 is my favorite in terms of the story it tells, and 0, the last one in the series, the prequel, I think is the best one we did in terms of the length of game and how we communicated information and the story we told and stuff like that. So they're always a little bit different. And when I look at my toolbox of ideas and say, well, what do I want to use and what don't I want to use? And is there anything new we can add? Is there anything we can repurpose? But to me, I feel like I've my toolbox is pretty full. I sometimes struggle these days, say, what's new can I do in this world? Because I don't want to just start putting together the same ideas in a slightly different way.
Talking about this matter, you worked in corporate environments at Hasbro, and now you run your own company. How
Mhm.
different is trying to innovate within a large corporation versus having your own creative control?
It was
It's only a matter of money, or
Yeah, I mean, you got a ton of resources at Hasbro, and I still miss being able to walk over to engineers and electronic people and a model shop and a sample room and like, here's my idea. Can you make something like this? And can you turn it into a sample and going to electronics? So you had this team that you could talk to right away. With a small company, like when we were doing Return to Dark Tower for restoration, we were probably 8 people at the time. Like, who do we bring in to do this? Like, you have to find people. Um, but Hasbro, as a large publicly held company with shareholders and everything, is not often going to take, it's hard to convince people to take a crazy risk. No pun intended for Risk Legacy. It was a risk. That game died internally so many times, and I had to leverage all my political capital and experience and everything else to get it to market. Like, the details are getting fuzzier as the years go on, but I basically almost secretly moved it through the system to have it come out. because I knew if it got a lot of attention, people were like, we're not, whatever that is, we're not doing it. So I tried not to get it in front of a lot of reviews and a lot of, things like that with executives, because it's weird. And they would have just said, I don't know, whatever this is, we're not doing it. But you could, like, HeroScape was very different. Some of the DVD, I mean, they're out of date now, but DVD games we did were kind of different. Um, you had resources to do different things, and you could fail doing them, which was cool. You can't take as big swings like at Restoration. If we say, okay, we're going to do this, and if it hits, we're great, and if not, we're going to go out of business. Like, I don't want to do that to myself or the people I work with. So you have to be conservative in different ways.
Mhm. Let's return to Restoration Games and to another massive Kickstarter success. Fireball Island, The
Mm-hmm.
Curse of Volcar
Mm-hmm.
was another massive Kickstarter success. How do you decide what to keep from the original versus what needed a complete redesign?
Well, in that one was pretty straightforward what to keep. You have a giant vacuum formed island with Volcar at the top, and marbles roll down. And the heart of the game is flicking a marble and knocking over your opponent's figure. That's it. That's the funny part. That's the good part. And we, the only thing we turned on its head there in the original game, you didn't know when you were going to roll some marbles. It was up to a die roll, I remember. Like if you roll a 6 or a 1, I can't remember now, you would roll a marble. But once you rolled it, you knew exactly where it was going to go. There was no excitement. Yeah, it's going to roll down and knock that person over. We turned that on its head, which is you have more control over when and how the marbles go. But we designed the game in such a way that it almost looked like a ski mountain with all these sort of bumps and stuff. And the marbles were going to go different directions every time. So every time a marble rolled, everyone was riveted to it because it would do different things at different times. And so every marble drop we wanted to be exciting, whether you were flicking or rolling, rather than, yep, it's going to go down here and knock you over again. And that was it. It was every time we tried to get more creative, I would say, like, this is a game about knocking people over with a marble. Let's not make it a deck builder or a, point allocation system like that. It's not what people want here. And so we just kept it relatively simple.
Okay. Looking at your credits, you have collaborated with many designers over the years. What makes for a successful design partnership? How do you handle, creative disagreements?
I like talking, as you can tell, and the way that the way that I work is I like talking to people and figuring out through talking what's in my head or getting excited by other ideas, and then can go off quietly and do it. But if it was just me looking at a computer screen thinking about a game, I wouldn't get very much. So a lot of times I collaborate because I think, makes me make better games, and I like seeing how. And I learn from everyone. I learned from Eric Lang. I learned from Matt Leacock. But what I need in a partnership, because they've not all worked out in some games, with some people we've tried to do something and it just didn't work, is the people who like to design games quietly, in their head, and only talk about stuff if they have to, works opposite with me, because I'll get on a call and want to throw ideas around, and I can see them like, I don't, you know what, I need some time to process this. And it's a very short call, and then they go away for a few days and come back and say, I've designed something. And I'm like, well, now I wasn't there for it. Like, you need two people who like talking, or as Eric Lang calls it, jamming like a band. Let's just get in a
Yeah.
room and talk at each other and jam on some games and figure it out. Yeah, sometimes you have creative differences, and often what I say, and I've said this to Matt a lot, is, if he has an idea and I have a different idea, it's like, let's just pick one and test it and let the data fall where it may. If people love it and I didn't like it, I was wrong. If people hate it, I was right. But either way, let's let the players decide, because we just have different opinions.
Okay. Time for another personal question.
Okay.
You have fundamentally changed how people think about board games with legacy mechanics. How does it feel to see your innovation copied, adapted, and evolved by other designers?
It feels great. Um, the fact that Reiner Knizia made a legacy game, like, well, that's
Yeah.
really cool. Like, when I was starting in the industry, I was like, woof, I'm never going to be games at this guy's level, and he was inspired by an idea I had. I'm like, that's just phenomenal. A lot of the times it's invisible to me. It happens off stage, right? Like I'll see a game, I'm like, oh, it's a legacy game, and it always feels good. It always feels like I did something that other people can use to design their games, and that's really cool. But I work here in my house in a relatively small town. It's not like I see it every day. I have to go to conventions or come on a podcast where I'm like, oh, right, yeah, I did that sort of thing. Like for me, I'm working on 6 or 7 games right now, and I'm just thinking about the next thing I need to be doing. But it is nice every once in a while to stop and be like, oh, yeah, I've done stuff. Like at the beginning of the show, when you talked about some of the things I did, that's always a good reminder. I'm like, right, yes, I did some things.
On this note, could you tell us what's boiling in the pot right now? You
I'm working on a couple things for restoration, one of which we're going to announce, I think, this month that I'm excited about. We're starting up a bunch of different projects for the upcoming. Well, we're late on one, so it's a next year game, but most of the time we're starting up projects for 2 or 3 years from now, which feels good that we're that far ahead. Continuing to work on various unmatched. I do have Forbidden Legacy with Matt Leacock coming out at Gen Con. That's been announced. That
I
one's
read
done.
about it, yeah.
Yeah, from our point of view, that was fun, taking a legacy game and making it more family friendly and things like that. There's a game called Nemesis, and Nemesis Legacy was just announced. That's taking most of my time these days. It's from Awakened
From
Realms.
from the Awakened Realms,
Yeah, Awakened Realms. Like,
Nemesis Legacy. Wow, that's
yeah,
significant.
that is probably, because of what we're doing, one of the most complicated legacy games or projects I've ever worked on. And right after we get done this call, I'm grabbing a quick lunch and then meeting with my co-designer and spending a couple hours working on it. Like we're in crunch time from now till the end of the year to get it all to work, because we're doing something different and I can't get into it, but I think it's really cool to play. It's going to make everyone's gameplay experience very different, but it's a lot of work to get it right. And then I have 2 other legacy games right now, and then 1 non-legacy game for outside publishers that I can't talk about yet.
Okay.
So I'm
Okay.
personally working on 5 or 6, and then overseeing another 5 or 6.
Okay. We are in the final phase of the
Okay.
podcast. Okay. Looking ahead from your particular personal point of view, uh, so in your opinion, what's the next big innovation waiting to transform board gaming? And what
I
excites you most about the future of this hobby?
I don't know what's next. If I knew what was next, I'd be doing it, and then I'd be the first one to do it. I've seen table presence get big. Now I've seen things get small, like trick-taking games were big. But given how long it takes to make a game, often by the time you see a trend, you're too late to do the trend, because you'll be 2 years later and
Yeah.
people have moved on. So often it's kind of luck, where like a bunch of publishers kind of come in the same idea at the same time, and then it creates a trend. What I have seen for almost 20 years now, a number of people try and fail at, and I still don't see it ever catching, is the smart board, like the game board with a tablet and pieces on a screen, where you're playing a board game on a screen and it knows where pieces are and things are dynamically changing, which is always a great promise, right? Like you go in and it knows where you are and things change. I have never seen one come to market in such a way that it has gotten hold, right? And I've had a number. I 15 years ago or so, when I was leaving Hasbro, I like kicked around on one, and then there was a different one that Restoration said, sure, you can use our games on it for launch, and I don't think that ever came out. And I think Asmodee or Simon, someone was trying to do a different one, and I think they just always run into issues. So I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. Now, that said, there could be one launch this year that takes the world by storm. I am constantly amazed at how often I am wrong with what will hit. Like Bloom, when I was teaching, I would be like, here's some things that will make your game not succeed. Difficult to set up, a lot of fiddly pieces, I would list a whole bunch of stuff, and basically I would list everything that Gloomhaven did, and it's like one of the most popular games of all time.
Yeah.
Um, and Wingspan, I think, is a very, very lovely game. I continue to be surprised at its level of success, not because there's anything wrong with it, but why that game and not other games. And I think it's maybe the theme, and there's a couple other things, but I'm often just surprised at how wrong I am when I play a game and say, oh, this is fine. And then it takes off, or I think it's the greatest game. And then like nothing ever happens again. I think there's still a room for it, but right now in today's like world and economy, I see less, other than some Kickstarters and things, I see fewer games that are like $120 and a lot of plastic and big and over the top and things like that. I'm seeing a lot more lower cost, faster games, cozy games. I don't know if you know the term like this. Everyone's a kitten, and your job is to, walk around the living room, like these little cute sort of
Apart
games.
from exploding kittens.
Apart from exploding. And I do think Wingspan led to that, like gentler themes where people aren't like taking over the world and conquering, and you're in medieval Italy and you're up in Florence and you're doing some things like that. Sorry, Firenze.
Firenze, yeah.
I prefer the Italian. And so you see that and like, oh, I should make a cozy game. And again, like 2 years from now, who knows if they'll even be there. So I tend to just make games that are fun to work on for me, because at some point, any game you're working on, you're going to be like, I'm so tired of working on this game. So if you're starting out working on a game where you're like, this isn't really my type of game, but it's what's popular now, so I'm going to do it because I have to, it's just going to be miserable, because you're not talking to yourself. You're trying to talk and you're trying to just make money somewhere.
Yeah. The same thing with a writer who write a book because because it's that type of book is a a huge success, and he wants to write a similar book, but without that, it's not resonating within
Sure.
itself.
Yeah. I have tried, not recently because I learned my lesson, I have tried to be like, I should do a Euro style game, kind of abstract with a light theme that really focus on some stuff. And I always fail because
It didn't work.
That's not what it's not what my brain wants to do. And I will play some and I will like them, but it's not my favorite type of game.
Yeah.
And so when I try to do it, I'm doing it because I'm giving myself a challenge to see if I can. And the answer is why? Why am I challenging myself? There are plenty of people who do there, and I kind of do my own nonsense. And so I just stick to it.
Could you give some advice for to young game designers who wants to begin this career?
Yeah. One thing I like to say is you can be a game designer, and you can be a successful game designer, and you can be a professional game designer without it being the only thing you do. There is a big spectrum from, like, if you want to make a game that you just play with your friends and you don't make any money on it, that counts. If you want to be a type of designer who has a different job, you're a teacher or a doctor or whatever you do, and then when you want to, you make a game and maybe you sell some and it pays for a vacation somewhere, that counts as well. And then if you want to try to do it full time, that's great too. But one thing I like to tell people is, when you do something full time, it becomes a job, right? Like if you're like, I don't feel like working on this game, I'm stuck. It's like, well, you have to do it because now it's your job, and you're dealing with a lot of other things besides making games. So there is a spectrum of just creating something for fun, and creating something for a little money, and creating something for a lot of money. And all of those are a perfect place, and just be okay wherever you end up on that journey. As for actually making the games, just know that myself and other people I work with who are, like you would say, are very successful, we still struggle. We still make mistakes. We still get it wrong. We are just more often than not able to be like, no, we got it wrong. Let's just keep going. Like we know that this is just part of the process. But if you're starting out and your game's bad, one, you might not have the experience to know it's bad yet or why it's bad. But it's also a lot more frustrating because you're like, I can't do this. I tried something and it was perfect in my head, and then people played and they didn't like it. And I'm like, well, welcome to designing games. I have never gotten it right on the first try, and often it's dozens and dozens and dozens. I think with Forbidden Legacy, Matt and I are very good at the kit, we call it, with all the components like that. Like when we make a significant change, we renumber it. I think we had 69 versions of it.
Okay.
So
So the best advice you could give is don't give up if the first try fails.
oh, your first try will fail.
Will fail. Okay. Don't
Yeah,
give up
like
anyway.
I mean, the only one I know is Vlada Chavta when he did code names. He said he made that up in like half an hour and it was first try. But then he thought it can't be that easy and spent a year trying all these variations and changes. Then went back to his original version, but also said he had been designing games for 20 years. So, he kind of knew and just got lucky on that one. But that's like the only one. And I hold it up as like, it is possible, but just highly unlikely. And so, yeah, it's like be gentle with yourself. And if you want to make something, it is a craft, right? You're not going to learn to play guitar overnight. You're not going to learn how to be a great cook overnight or
Absolutely
dance
not.
or anything else or drive a car. Whatever you do, no one's like, well, I got in a car and I didn't drive at a professional level right away, so I'm bad at driving. It's like, no, you just haven't done it enough.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rob.
Yeah,
For everyone listening, if you haven't experienced yet a legacy game, Pandemic Legacy Season 1, I think, is still be the perfect place to start, in my opinion.
it is.
And
I'm noticing like royalties are going down, so it may go out of print soon. So
oh, okay, okay, okay.
get it soon.
And keep an eye on restoration games for incredible restorations of classic games. Um, Thanks again, Rob, and keep revolutionizing this hobby we all love.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me on.
Bye, Rob.